It's funny. People always be like, don't forget about the little people. It's like, why do they refer themselves as little anyway, you know? Why don't you just get big with me? Feel me? They can see it in my eyes. No matter what they
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of John's Untitled Podcast. I am your host, John. First of all, I want to apologize for the last 2 weeks' intros with my sick-sounding voice. It's very much exactly what it was. I was a little under the weather the last couple of weeks, but these podcasts have got to get done. The intro's got to get recorded, so you just kind of got to endure and get through. But as I was listening back to the Zach Deere episode that I posted last week, I realized that I didn't really have any enthusiasm or just kind of sounded like very blah about the whole thing. So it wasn't that I wasn't into it or anything like that. It was just more so that I was sick and knew that they needed to be done so the episode could go out. So that's exactly what it was. That being said, this week's episode, my guest is Jeremy from the band Earth Groans. You probably aren't familiar with the band because they are a relatively newer band as a whole. They are a new Solid State signee. They just released their EP as of the time of recording this, about a week ago. I was able to catch up with Jeremy while they were on their $1 Brawler tour. I forget exactly where he was at the time, but I want to say Lawrence, Kansas, perhaps, or maybe even somewhere here in near the Midwest. But yeah, so I mean, the conversation kind of goes a little all over the place, as you'll end up hearing pretty much right out the gate. For them being a newer band, I was expecting there to at least be, some local interviews or something of them, but there was literally nothing. And so it really made it kind of fun and challenging on my end to think of some interesting questions to ask that I typically would probably think were stupid. But when there's literally no information on this band, you kind of have to make your own questions and treat it like exactly like it is. A lot of the links that were on their website were dead links. There was pretty much nothing on their Facebook page other than them just preparing for their EP to drop, I think at that point within a day or two of us having this conversation. So it was a little challenging having a conversation with someone that you have no back history on and can't find anything on. I had to do a little snooping and go through Jeremy's Twitter feed and his his public Facebook page for himself and kind of gather some information of what I could find. So kind of a really fun chat getting to know someone, especially when you have no idea really where it's going. But what was interesting to me about this was their manager had sent me their EP about a week and a half before it was about to be released, and I had put in to do an interview with them. Solid State being one of the handful of labels when I was growing up in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, getting into metal and metalcore. Solid State, it was all about labels back then, and Solid State, Roadrunner, to a degree Victory, Tooth and Nail, these were labels that it pretty much didn't matter what band it was. If I saw that record label thing on the back of the CD, I probably was going to buy it, which led me to finding bands, and granted this band wasn't on any of those labels, but back when CD stores actually had CDs and they would recommend hey, if you like this band, listen to this band. I remember getting the first As I Lay Dying record and the Haste the Day records, and to a degree, someone showing me Under Oath and Amberlin, and I mean, granted, they're not really a metal band, but I think they're pretty heavy at times. The guitar tone's really heavy, but that's a different story. But Solid State was always a band, or was a label that always put out solid records, no pun intended. And it was a record label that always was consistently good, and you knew that any band they found was good. So I kind of still went into this one thinking the same thing. They still have a penchant for finding great new young bands that have a great faith-based message or a really positive message indirectly, and have a really great sound. And this EP was no different. It had that like classic, more, I believe they call it like gent style guitar playing and stuff like that. And Jeremy's vocals were pretty on point with what you would expect for the style of music that they're playing. The thing that kind of caught me off guard, though, upon listening to the record as a whole, and you'll hear me say this in the episode, was how word heavy the songs were, and not like in a bad way, but like just like, you could tell that there was something that Jeremy was trying to say, and that it was important because there was a lot of words. It wasn't like, some of these bands, like it's all about like the technical shredding ability of like the guitar player or the drum fills or whatever it is that you want to, musically that you want to focus on, and just letting, the singer only writing the equivalent of like 2 paragraphs and then like a line. And, if you look at the lyrics to this EP, like you see a lot of lyrics, a lot of things to take in. And so that's why I was really stoked to find all the lyrics on the band's website. Like those are still up. So I was able to kind of read more into the lyrics and kind of get a better sense of what was being said, as I know that it was important to Jeremy and is a big part of the band. With a band name like Earth Groans, and as you very quickly learn in this interview, like Jeremy is a very passionate person about his message that he's trying to send, and his faith and all of that kind of stuff. And it was definitely something that's very obvious when you read the lyrics by themselves. So I kind of wanted to ask him a little bit about that, and we get into that as well. But yeah, the Christian metal scene, oddly enough, like I don't identify with any religion personally, but ironically, like my wife and I always talk about how all the music we listened to back then was all Christian metal bands, like, like I said, like the As I Lay Dyings, the Norma Jeans, the Haste the Days, the Still Remains, the so on and so forth. Like the list just goes on and on. So it's kind of weird that for as much as we don't identify with this particular religion, that we definitely were listening to a lot of music that had those influences within the lyrics, and were preaching positivity and all that kind of stuff. And I think maybe that honestly is what drew me to it, because I think for the most part I'm a pretty positive person. So why wouldn't that be reflected in the music that I listen to? So that's a little bit about that. Also want to give a shout out to Zach Deere for sharing the last episode with him on it. That episode's been doing really well in the few days that it's been out. As of the time of this recording, I'm kind of cheating it. I'm getting this done a few days early because I have a benefit show this weekend for a friend of mine who's back in town from Portland, Oregon. Long and short, but she's got some financial stuff going on due to medical emergency that she underwent a couple of months ago. And so Saturday, like, I'm throwing a benefit show for her, and all the money raised is going to go to her. So I know that's going to be a long night. The NBA finals start tonight as of the night of recording, this is being done on a Thursday. So game 1's tonight, and I know that's going to keep me up pretty late and getting everything ready for the show on Saturday. So there goes between my job and doing that shit on Friday. Like, that's out the gate. So trying to be a little proactive and getting this done ahead of time, so that way, like, I can get this posted on the right date. So yeah, thanks again, Zach, for sharing it and showing the love. Speaking of showing the love, why don't you show me some love and follow me on my social medias? That's the thing people do, right? You follow people, even if you don't know them. Why don't you just go ahead and add me on Facebook or Instagram? You don't have to check out my stuff. I'm just that thing that scrolls up in your feed, and you might, like, catch something that interests you. But you know what? That, like, pushing that button and liking me or following me, it really helps me get some of these other guests that I've been trying to go after. They like to see the numbers, like to see my episodes doing good. So if you could follow me on Facebook and Instagram, you can follow me at John's Untitled Podcast. That's all one word, no H, Jons, Untitled Podcast. If you want to tweet me and follow me there, John's Untitled Pod. If you want to email me for whatever reason, do such at johnsuntitledpod@gmail.com. Another thing that really helps is rate, reviewing, and subscribing. You are listening to this, and whatever you're listening to it on, whether it be iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, there's a slew of other podcast apps that I know this is on. So however you are finding me, if you can follow me, rate the podcast, review the podcast, do all that kind of stuff, that greatly helps as well. That puts this into other people's eyes and ears, like, when they're looking for podcasts of a certain nature. So if you like what I'm doing, and it sounds like from a lot of the feedback I've been getting on some of the back episodes, like with Nate and Ivy Barklow, and the episode I did with Skylar from He Is Legend, like, it seems like everyone actually enjoys this, which kind of surprises me. Like, no one's really said anything negative. So yeah, please rate, review, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to this on. Helps me out tremendously. So without further ado, here is my chat with Jeremy from Earth Groans.
in my band, I'm totally the one that's totally out of style, so I just wear black shirts and black jeans.
Well, I'm always like, whatever happened to the good old days of just being like the black t-shirt convention whenever you go to shows?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm still stuck on that. I'm convinced that that's going to last forever for me.
I mean, it's a classic look for a reason, because it doesn't
Yeah.
go out of style.
Yeah. I figured just get lots of colorful tattoos, and then I'll still be cool.
Pretty much in the same boat.
Absolutely.
The irony of getting ready to set all this up, I tried doing my due diligence and finding interviews or any press that you guys have done, and to my dismay, I really couldn't find very much at all.
Yeah, we really don't. I mean, we're decently a newer band for the most part. We're coming up on 2 years of being active. So, and in that time frame, we were just basically grinding as hard as we can, just touring our butts off. So, I don't know. Yeah, we just didn't do a whole lot of interview. We had, just a few minor like reviews and stuff like that. So, yeah, I guess we somehow we managed to get by without that kind of stuff for now. But I'm glad that we can finally get some of this stuff going.
Yeah. Well, what was kind of interesting was, and I've already kind of been recording, so I mean, at this point, like, that was one of my questions that you kind of touched on. So,
sure.
One of the things that I thought was kind of interesting in going through your band's website is you had like YouTube videos of like why you chose the band name Earth Groans, which was gone. There were kind of a lot of dead links to some of the things that you had done previously, it seems. Is this done intentionally to kind of, this is I won't necessarily call it a rebirth, but a re-emergence of this band as it is now going to be known from this day forward? Or what was kind of the story behind that?
I guess it's a re-earth, if you will.
Good play.
But yeah, right. I'm a funny guy. Anyways, before we had signed, we were pushing a lot of media, a lot of videos. We were doing a lot of explanation videos, and we had several live videos and stuff like that. The minute that, or as we got closer to announcing our signing with Solid State, we started pulling all that stuff offline. As to, get ready for, announcing with Solid State. And then now that we're on Solid State, we're going to be slowly releasing that stuff through Solid State. And then we'll have a lot bigger platform to push that media out on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that was just kind of weird. Like I said, for a newer band, there was pretty much seemingly no information about you guys, and even the biggest thing obviously would be why Earth Groans, why that name. So I got really excited when I saw there was a video explaining all of that, and then it was gone. So I was like, okay, there's not really anything for me to go off of. So a lot of my questions, forgive them if they're very rudiment in their approach. So I guess let's start with the band formation. When did Earth Groans become an entity?
Sure. So the way we did things is a little bit different than probably how most bands started. So Earth Groans started off as a solo project of mine. I had been in touring bands for several years, basically since I was like 16 or so in high school. I was all about touring, and I always felt that's where my calling was. After my last band that I had been in, the last serious band I was in, we broke up about 3 years ago. And then I also have a recording studio. And so I was like, okay, well, this is an opportunity for me to go full-time with my recording studio. So I started doing that full-time for about 1.5 years, 2 years. But then that same, tugging came along, and I just felt this calling to be in a touring ministry, and in a ministry through music, just a touring act.
Right.
So then I was like, well, I'm located in South Dakota, where it's a very remote scene where it comes to musicians and find anyone dedicated.
Right.
So I was like, well, I'm going to start writing a record, and if it goes well and I'm happy with how things come along, I'll start looking for members. And actually, after I had our first EP written, I started reaching out just a little bit. And everything just started kind of falling into place, like a little bit easier than I expected it to. Right off the bat, I got Zach and Brady, our guitarist and drummer, involved. And they were in a band that I had actually recorded for my business. So it was just kind of crazy how that connection was already there. So I already kind of knew these guys, and I knew their abilities. And So right off the bat, I had a solid, dedicated drummer and guitarist. And then we toured with a few fill-in bassists for a while. And then about 8 months ago, we found Caden, and then he's been a full-time member now for about 8 months. But so I guess, we started off as kind of an idea
solo
of
project,
yeah,
of sorts.
maybe, yeah, just experiment. We'll see what happens, and then all of a sudden everything just kind of took off, and it's as if like it was already like the paths were kind of already created for us, and we were just stepping into place and taking our role.
Yeah, I
So
had to do a little digging on you since, like I said, there wasn't very much information about
yep,
the band. So I had ended up finding out that you worked for a studio or own your own recording stuff.
sure.
Um, so at that point, I kind of was wondering if you play any instruments yourself or how much of the writing process you're heavily involved in. But it sounds like with what you were just saying, you wrote a lot of this and were finding other people to kind of fill out the live scenario.
Yep. And don't get me wrong; these guys are definitely a lot better at their instruments than I am. I'm a good writer, but I'm not necessarily a good player. So I did the album to the best of my ability, and then in the future, with writing and stuff, they'll be stepping in and actually, doing their parts on the records. So
Have you guys been writing any newer stuff as a full band at this
yeah.
point? Yeah.
So yeah, for the most part, I'm still writing a lot of the material. But yeah, we're definitely we have some stuff in the works. A lot of people have been asking, with our release or us signing to Solid State. So does this mean you guys are going to be putting out a new album? And yes, we will be putting out a new album at in like 6-8 months, but we're just doing the re-release for right now, just because so many people haven't heard that record, and it's a great record. And I feel like if we were to put out a new record on Solid State, nobody would get to hear Renovate, and it's a great record that we still want to keep playing and keep pushing on. So, but yeah, in the future we'll have the full band stepping up to the plate and kind of taking some of that role.
Have you noticed in the earlier phases of songwriting with the full band, have you noticed the sound changing at all, or not really due to the fact that you're still the main songwriter?
It's definitely gonna be more mature. The first EP was my first time, I guess, stepping into a lead role of writing, and it was kind of also the first time I've done a project like this. I've been
As far
in
as
a,
this, sorry, to cut you off. As far as the sound, as far as
yep,
being like a
this sound,
hardcore
yep.
kind of sound.
Yeah, I've
Okay.
been in like metalcore bands, stuff like that, but melodic, hardcore stuff like that. But I've never been in, I don't know what's exactly what our genre is. We kind of call ourselves aggressive metal, but the sound that we're going after, this is the first time I've done that sound. And so as I was attempting, as I was writing this record, I was, kind of playing around with a lot of ideas to really figure out what our sound is. But now after having one record under our belt, it's definitely like we have it nailed down. So, a lot of our writing is definitely going to be a lot more mature, and we have a lot better of idea exactly what sound we're going after. So I would say, if anything, it might be maybe a little heavier, but for the most part, it's a very, very similar sound to what we already have, except I would just say, a little more mature.
With growing up in South Dakota,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I saw that in your band bio, I was like, that's a very interesting place for a band to come
Yes,
out of.
very desolate.
Yeah.
Very desolate when it comes to, especially metal bands, very desolate.
So it's pretty safe to say there's not really a scene out there.
I mean, it's like since South Dakota, there's people that want music. And since South Dakota usually gets skipped by the bigger tours, when there is a good show coming through, everyone comes out because they want it so badly.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that are hungry for it. It's just, getting the resources and getting the right people to step into place and bring in, the funding and for everything. But there are definitely people in South Dakota that want to hear, good music. And we've had some incredible shows in South Dakota. So no matter what anybody tells you, there's definitely people in South Dakota that want to hear metal.
I guess I meant more, is there like a really great local scene? Like, is there
I gotcha.
kind of a fledgling, not fledgling, that's not how I meant to say that. Is there
That's
like
okay.
an up and coming scene like of local bands like yourself? Like, was there like a handful of bands, like maybe you and like three other bands that, I mean, maybe you oversaturated the area a little bit because you're
Yeah.
the only three or four bands in the area, but is
Yeah.
there something like that where like those four bands were kind of like the starting point? Now you're starting to see some other people who are like, man, like I really like what you're doing, and I really want to do this, and I play guitar, so like me and my friends got
hmm
together now. Like, is there kind of that jumping off point you're seeing, or is it kind of just one of those things where there's a lot of people who want a scene to be there, but not be an
Uh-huh.
active participant per se in the
Sure.
making of the scene itself?
Sure. I mean, the scene, it seems like it's always fluctuating. It comes and goes very often, but I definitely see there's a lot of, especially in the Sioux Falls area, that's the scene that we're closest to. I'd say there's a lot of younger people that are starting bands, which is awesome to see. You know, people in high school getting active and bringing their friends out to shows. So that's awesome, and I really think that that's the future of our metal scene. But yeah, I definitely see there are some hungry teenagers out there that want to start playing music, and so we're hoping that this is that we can inspire some of the younger generation and stuff to start playing more and put the bands together and bring their friends out, and because for a lot of us, at least me personally, that's like that scene was the community that I grew up with, and that was like a majority of my friends came out of the music scene, and like I consider a lot of them family, if not best friends. So I think that it's really important for younger generation to have that something that they can call home, if you will.
Yeah, it's just one of those things like, when sometimes it takes a band to be like yourself that's younger and to get signed for
hmm
other bands to kind of I think realize like it can happen and
Yeah,
it's not a pipe dream and that it is something that's very achievable. You just kind of got to put in the work
definitely.
and do everything. But
Yep.
living here in Michigan and being from Delaware originally, I very
hmm
much understand small town vibe and being kind of away from a big city and feeling like nothing ever comes here. It's never
Sure.
going to be this big scene. But it's been interesting to see since I've moved to Michigan now. I've been here most of my life in
hmm
Michigan, but it's been interesting to see that Delaware is now becoming like a place where a lot of tours for East Coast bands like starts.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird to see like finally, almost 20 years later that there's actually a music scene starting to at least be achievable out there for to bring
Yeah.
bands through. Um,
Yep.
so with that being said, like you kind of had said that this is more of a solo project, more of I would say with you, basically being a producer, a studio project in the infancy of it. Um, how how much have you guys been touring since the live band has been, a full fleshed out entity?
Sure. So about 2 years, I think what is it? Like May 19th was our very first tour 2 years ago.
Oh, so
So
almost
coming
be
up
2 years to the day,
yep,
like tomorrow.
pretty much. So yeah, so that was our very first tour as a full band. And then since then we've been grinding. We've been putting in the time, and even Zach almost got kicked out of college because he was missing too much school to go out on these tours. And but yeah, we've done. I don't know the exact amount of dates, but I'd say that we've done about 100 to 150 days for the last each year. So
So you
it's
pretty much
probably
have hit up you've been in every state at this point, I would assume.
just about. We haven't. The only
Well,
place we
obviously, like
haven't
not
really
Hawaii.
hit up. Right. I wish Hawaii. But maybe in December when it's cold, snowy in the Midwest, we can head out there.
Right.
But the Northeast corner, that takes so long for us to get out there. We just haven't
Yeah.
quite got out to like New York and everything, but we've gotten just about there. So yeah, we've pretty much covered a majority of the U.S. After this year, I think we'll pretty much hit, for the most part, the full 48 states. Um, so
What what is with being such a younger band from kind of a distant place that many people probably haven't been to or through,
right.
what's kind of been the reaction? Because I know like when I saw that you guys were from South Dakota, I was like, I can't really think of any band that I know that's from there, and I know a
Right.
lot of bands, and I follow like a lot of smaller labels and such, and I was like, I think you're the
Sure.
first band from that area, so What's how's that reception been?
We have it. We have the whole state behind us. I mean, the whole metal community. They're all very proud of us, and we have their support, which is really great. They have somebody to root for. They have their hometown heroes to kind of, support and root for as we're out there touring and everything. So we've had like an abundance of support from hometown friends, and really, I guess, just more support than we anticipated. We didn't know how this would go down, but it's unbelievable, really, how many people step up after we have announced and just have shown their support. They've really come out of the woodwork, and it's beyond humbling just to have that support behind us. So far the reaction has been shocking, I guess. It's been great. It's been great.
Kind of focusing a little bit more now on the lyrical content of the band, with you being the vocalist. You had said that you had been in other bands. Have you always been the vocalist, or were you kind of more of the, like, I was, the guitar player or whatever?
Sure. Actually, the very, very first band I was in, I was the drummer. And then the next band, I was the drummer and the lead vocalist.
So kind of pulling up from Mono Dash's kind of vibe.
Yeah, it was. We won't talk about that time because that was my high school days, and that was looking back at a different person and embarrassing, But yeah, no, we all start somewhere, I guess. But after that, I definitely went to the more lead vocalist role. I started playing more of the instruments after I played drums. I started picking up the other instruments, and then being a producer and everything, you kind of try and learn every instrument that's going to be in your studio, just so that you can kind of use your knowledge for input and everything.
Well, yeah, to figure out the sounds and so forth, obviously.
Yeah. Yep. I also played some piano and stuff like that, which I think that is probably the key factor, or the foundation, I guess, in my musical knowledge. And even when I'm in the studio or doing anything with the band, if I'm tuning the drums or something, I'll go to the piano and I'll play the chords so I can hear what it sounds like before I'm setting the tuning. And so,
yeah.
But.
So with kind of being a vocalist in the sense of that's what I'm looking for. With being a vocalist in this project and kind of taking on the lyrical content, I was actually really surprised because when I got the record, and it's kind of the bummer part of getting a record before it's released. You don't really get anything other than the music, so you're just can someone send me lyrics or whatever I can get? So I can at least kind of understand what I'm listening to when you're usually having these interviews so quickly after getting the record. But I was actually kind of surprised at how much is written for this. I mean, typically it seems like with a lot of bands, especially younger bands, it almost seems like the approach is that they don't write very much, and I don't know if that's just because they're not confident in writing a lot, or they don't know the voice that they want or have. So I was very surprised to see. I mean, I'm even looking at songs like The Estate, or even the single you just put out, Driving Out, that there's a lot of lyrics to take in, and it's not like it's fluff lyrics either. It's a very it's really intense lyrically record, and so I kind of wanted to delve a little bit into the songs themselves and kind of maybe get a little bit of input about the inspiration for them. I kind of noticed a few themes lyrically throughout some of the songs, and I noticed this in two of them, but and I don't know if I'm just latching onto the word, but I noticed the flickering. You use flicker a few different times. So sometimes when I see something like that, or a single word used a few different times, I wonder if there's more of a story behind that, if there was a narrative that was driving that specific word or phrasing through the lyrics.
Yeah. So I write my lyrics. I'm a very passionate person, especially when it comes to putting down the lyrics in the song, because that's, you can have the greatest musical content in the world, but if the lyrics don't mean anything to somebody, if they don't have any depth to them, then it's bad music to me. I'm very passionate about the storyline behind the music and everything. So I guess some of the themes that we really try and push is first of all, we push kind of a chaotic sound that that's might be where some of that flickering stuff comes from. So that we definitely want to give the feeling of chaos, unsettling. And I think the thing about it is we want to shake people up. We want people to take a step back from their normal life. A lot of people seem to fall complacent. I've been complacent in my life, and I needed something to shake me from that complacency, to, start focusing on some of the problems in my life. And so I think that's one of the main things, especially with this album, is that we want to shake people up, and we want them to take a step back and look at their own lives and, look at where they're going in life, what their purpose is, and just the person that they are, and to open their eyes and see the people around them and their surroundings, and how much they're blessed, how perfectly they're created, So I think that's probably one of the biggest themes that we want to get across on this album, is that to shake people and to make people feel uneasy, to take a step back and, I guess renovate, start changing things in their life for the better.
Yeah, I because sometimes like with heavier lyrical content on records, I sometimes wonder. I mean, as someone who likes finding little nuances in the music I listen to, and something that keeps bringing me back as a listener between whether it's the phrasing of a lyric or just a studio trick or whatever, I sometimes wonder if there's ever the worry on the band's side of kind of doing too much or being too adventurous maybe, and kind of having
Sure.
things go over people's heads, and then like where they're like, I don't get it, this is way too, like, I'm not gonna read like all these lyrics, like F that, like I'm just
Yeah.
gonna too much too, I'm sorry you didn't, like I'm not gonna do the homework. Where, or is it a thing where it's like you want to challenge your listeners straight out the gate on this EP, and know that at that point the people who are taking the time to invest in the lyrics and invest in everything are actually legit fans who want to take everything in that you're doing, and kind of take
Yep.
everything in that you're putting forth, because it means something to you, like you said just a minute ago.
Yeah, I guess we want to capture both of those audiences, the ones that are really willing to put in, the time, and also the ones that just catch a line here and there. We're hoping that, both of them, in both cases, they can be inspired, or, it can mean something to them and they can relate to them. So whether it be, one line like, when the wind blows, dig your roots deep, or, some other line that's like, a whole story, we want everybody to be able to relate and come out, after listening to the record, a better person, I guess, or to that sense, you know.
Yeah, I there's actually a lyric in I believe the song's called Price Tag, if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
mistaken. Yeah.
Yep.
This may be just a weird like uh mistake sort of a thing,
Sure.
but I tend to, when I'm reading lyrics, I tend to, if there's like a quote or something, I try to find the quote and
Okay.
find
Yeah.
what it's from, and see like if there's more to the reference that so I can understand more. And there
Mm-hmm.
was the beginning of what appeared to be a quote from that, and it was, the line was, "What if I told you that you are a reflection of a king? I breathe forth galaxies, but I swear that you still mean so much more to me. I
Mm-hmm.
purchased you with sacrifice. You are my art. You are my prized. So I purchased you with my life. I paid the highest price, but you are worth it." Is that pulled from something? Because I couldn't find anything, so I don't know if
Right.
the quotation was not supposed to be there, and I just went on a search
Sure.
for something that wasn't a quote from anything.
Yeah. So this song is written, from the perspective, God is the artist and we are his creation. Okay, and
Okay.
so the whole song is talking from, the viewpoint, of a narrator talking about, like, God and his creation,
Hmm.
and God being the creator and everything. So, and then it comes to the very ending, and that is, supposed to be like the quotations of God. It's a lot of paraphrasing from, my research in the Bible and everything. So no, it's not. It's not direct like scripture.
Hmm.
Not exact like one verse, but it is like kind of a paraphrased version of what I believe God would say, to me, as if, he was stepping into this song and talking to us as his creation.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, when you see quotations like that, usually it means it's a quote from something. So I
Yeah,
wasn't sure if there was like a bigger part of a story that like I mean, because like I said, when reading the lyrics, like a lot of times, being a musician, like it's I usually focus on the music first. So a lot of
sure.
times when doing these, I end up talking to the vocalist. So I'm like, I should probably look up more of the lyrics, which are something it takes me a little longer to get into.
Yep.
But being an avid reader, like I saw that and I started Googling and trying to
Oh
break it
yeah.
down like by the phrase. Like maybe I was like, oh, maybe it's not the whole set, like the whole paragraph, but maybe it's just like a phrase, and I wasn't really able to find anything. So I was like,
Yeah.
I guess I will have to ask you if that came from something, and if it did, what did it come from specifically, so
Sure.
people can maybe do the research on their own and kind of start
Yeah.
inferring their own things. So
Definitely.
good to
We're just
know.
hoping that they would read that and be like, okay, this is said by somebody, and hopefully
Yeah.
they'd pick up on the idea that this is God speaking at that part.
Well,
So
yeah, that was definitely something I kind of had gathered, but uh, again, like I figured maybe with it being a quote, it came from something specific. But kind of speaking more onto the faith, because obviously, you guys are on a predominantly Christian metal based label.
yep.
You have pretty much made it no bones that like you are a Christian metal band.
Right. Yep.
Something I'm going to be 33 in September, so the original Christian metal scene, the original like years of like Solid State and Tooth and Nail and stuff like that, that's kind of my wheelhouse. As far
Sure.
as, like Haste the Day or even Still
Oh yeah.
Remains from here in Grand
That's
Rapids and stuff like that,
yep.
like the
Definitely.
original Norma Jean and
Yep.
so on
Definitely.
and so forth. What are some of your influences though? I mean, I saw on something that you had said that being on Solid State was like a goal of yours from like 12 years ago or a dream come
Oh
true.
yeah. Yep.
So with that being said, what are some of the influences that you had and kind of what does being on Solid State mean to you and the rest of the guys?
Yeah. I think we can all agree that being on Solid State is a dream come true. And we were talking about it today. We used to joke about being a Solid State band because we didn't actually think it would happen. And it was just a dream of ours. But now looking back, it's like, wow, we're truly blessed. It's truly incredible. So yeah, definitely Solid State. A lot of the Solid State bands, a number of them are our favorite bands still today. I mean, Under Oath is one of my absolute favorite bands. As Cities Burn, one of my absolute favorite bands. Haste Today, Norma Jean, The Cherry. Some of these bands, not August Burns Red. Some of them aren't currently on Solid State, but started on Solid State. So yeah, I would definitely say a majority of the original like Solid State lineup is definitely a majority of where we pull our inspiration from. Going off of that, I also do like some of the real heavy stuff, like Impending Doom. I definitely pull inspiration from that, and some like the faster drumming stuff, and even like Chelsea Grin has some great stuff. So there's a number of great metal bands out there, but I would say a lot of the Solid State bands alone are some of our biggest inspirations.
Do you feel like I guess I'll put it on myself and then ask you. I feel like there's been a resurgence kind of the Christian metal scene between bands like Gideon, Phineas. There's actually a band that was from just on the outskirts of the next state over, Forevermore, who have recently, in the last, I think, 2 years, have signed to Solid State as well. Do you feel like there is this resurgence and it's kind of like you're kind of at the right at the forefront of this new Christian metal scene resurgence, or is that something that I'm kind of putting on as the old person that remembers it and just seems like it's becoming a more prevalent thing within the music industry again?
Yeah, I have no idea. To be honest, I don't know if it's just all of a sudden it's going to come again, or what's going to happen with the whole Christian metal scene. I guess it would be awesome to see that a lot of the Christians in the metal industry stepping up. But I don't know. I guess I really don't know. I don't have much of an answer on that. Yeah, because I guess I never really thought about it. If the big metal scene is really going to make a big comeback or not. So I don't actually know how to answer that. I'm sorry.
No, it's totally fine. It's something as being, like I said, like the original Christian metal scene, or I guess what I call the original Christian metal scene,
Yeah.
was definitely a huge part of the resurgence of heavy music in general in the music industry between bands like As I Lay Dying and all the bands
Yeah.
that we've already mentioned. But
Yep.
I'm starting to notice like there's been a really big positive feedback to the like the new Gideon that just dropped
Yep.
recently.
Hmm.
Phineas is killing it. They're a
Yep.
big like becoming the next like a big level band.
Sure.
Forevermore's
Yeah.
gotten on really good tours with like the dudes in Emery and so forth. So I mean,
Yep.
it's like I'm
Silent
starting to
Planet. Yep.
see, yeah. So I'm starting to see the, I guess, willingness for people to, because for a while there it seemed like people were kind of going away from that sound, away from
Hmm.
having more of a positive message, faith-based message in the music, in the metal music, and I'm
Yep.
starting to notice it more coming back, and even
Yep.
to the degree of like bands like you already mentioned August Burns Red, like they kind of seems to go in waves, or like the Devil Wears Prada is like kind of coming back again, and Demon
Yep.
Hunter put out a phenomenal new record. That
Yep.
you're getting this thing where it seems like people want something to believe in again, and something have more positivity, have more lyrical content that has more of a meaning than just like, oh, here's my shitty day, whatever, and then kind of dwelling in negativity, or things
Yep.
like that. That it seems like people want this. So I didn't know if that's something that you've noticed yourself, being into that kind of music, or even maybe like with the label itself kind of having a plan for you based on some of these things that they've noticed themselves, or trends that they've noticed. So it was something I
Yeah.
was kind of thinking of, and seeing if maybe you've noticed it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, things definitely come in waves. I totally believe that. I'd love to see it happen, but I guess I don't know whether it will or not. I do know that I guess whether it comes or goes, I mean, we're gonna stay doing what we're doing. Even if it totally becomes, everybody's like bugaboo, that they don't want to listen to heavy Christian bands. We're still going to we're gonna keep doing what we're doing because that's what we feel called to do. So.
Do you feel, because when I got your press kit,
Hmm.
one of the big quotes that it kind of led off with was, "We are a ministry first and a band second."
Hmm.
Do you feel like that's a, to me when I read it, I was like, that's a very bodacious statement to like really kind of lead off with, for like
Yeah.
a press kit. Do
Yeah, I
you
guess I didn't know they were gonna put that first.
well, and maybe it was just one of those things. Like as I was kind of skimming over everything, and like I said, like you get a lot of information, and you're trying to take in as much as you can to prepare for these kind of interviews,
Hmm.
especially when you find that there is no information that there previously was. So you're trying to get anything and everything out of what little bit you have. But that was
Yep.
something that really stood out to me, and for such a young band, I was very impressed. But at the same time, I feel like maybe it's a very uh, it's a bold statement to make right away, for a
Sure.
band. Like usually that's something that a band that's got a couple of records and some history under their belt, that's usually something that they'll say. So
Yeah.
I was very surprised to see such a young band coming right out and being like, this is who we are and what we believe in right away.
Hmm.
um,
Sure.
I don't even know if there was a question in that. I thought there
Sure.
was.
I can follow up a little bit on that, I guess. I mean, I've always felt a calling. Like I said before, I've always felt a calling for ministry through music, and to each and every one of us, we believe that the music is just a vessel for us to minister. If we were gifted in some other way, if we were gifted in, we'll say like carpentry, we would each go over and do mission work, someplace else and minister through that. But since we feel like this is where God has put us, and our calling and our talents, that's what we're going to use it for. So, and I don't know how long this band will last or how long this is going to go. But for this time being, for this chapter of our lives, that's what we're going to do. And if at some point where God wants to pull the plug on that, or something happens, then we'll go minister somewhere else somehow. But
Is that something that you feel like you'll end up doing when the band thing's kind of done, is being going more into like ministry itself?
yes, I always want to serve. I've always had a big heart for serving. I've done a lot of mission work and stuff like that, and I've always felt that that's where I belong. So yeah, if it isn't through music, then it'll be something else. So maybe it's going to be working at a mission, serving homeless, or whatever the case might be. I want to be serving. So yes, definitely, that's where I feel like my heart is at, and I think I can speak for the other guys too when I say that's where our hearts are at, is serving others and just loving people that need the love.
I as someone who's heavily tattooed myself, and who, like I said, like my wife and I, like we're not, I wouldn't identify as a Christian or anything really, but it's
Okay.
funny, like we look back at like a lot of the metal that we grew up on in the
Mm-hmm.
late 90s, early 2000s, and a lot of bands we've already said. And the funny thing is we both go, like for people who don't identify with any faith specifically, I go, it's very funny that almost all the music we liked and loved a lot was all Christian based.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with that being said, I know my parents when I was starting to get into a lot of these bands were like, what is this stuff? Like, like my dad liked metal and stuff like that. So we kind of had a little bit more of an understanding of the heavier side of the music.
Mm-hmm.
But did you find that like getting into some of these heavier bands or whatever, do you find that even like maybe your own family or friends, like do you still find that it's people perceive you based on having tattoos or being in a metal band not being who you are and judge you based on these other things? Like, is that still a thing? Because I even noticed it back then when I would go to shows that people would be like, "Oh, this devil music," and it's like actually, if you really look at the lyrics, like it's usually
Yeah.
faith based. There's a lot of positivity in it, and it's
Yeah.
just done in an aggressive manner. Because I mean, who's not upset or angry at different times, in their life? So I
Sure.
just didn't know if that's still a thing, being so old and so removed kind of from it a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's still something that some of these younger bands like yourself go through.
Yeah, my family, I'm pretty much the only one that has tattoos and piercings in my family. I've always been the black sheep. I come from a very conservative family, a very conservative area. I don't really know. My dad told me when I was young that I could never be in a band. He also told me I couldn't listen to rock and roll because he truly believed that it was the devil's music because that's how he grew up.
Hmm.
Is that all rock and roll was, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's the devil stuff, And I don't. He knows that we're like where my heart is at, and so he doesn't say much about it anymore.
Hmm.
If my parents ever try to give me crap about my tattoos, I'll tell them the meaning
Uh-huh.
of what each one means, which usually comes back to something biblical or about my faith,
Hmm.
and it shuts them up. So if anybody that has a problem with my tattoos, I'll be happy to tell them why I have what I have, and I feel like it usually stops them in their tracks. But yeah, I don't. I guess I haven't had a whole lot of. We haven't had a whole lot of fuss as far as people, bringing up that we're tattooed and we're screaming and stuff that we're the devil's music or anything like that. But
I know that makes me
um,
sound like a super old person asking that question, but like I do, it's something that I mean, because I get judged, I would say, pretty much daily for how I look. And it's like,
yeah,
I'm very much the same way. Like I look like the bad guy or like
yeah,
something, like I've had people tell me that like I don't have parents who care because parents who care don't let their children grow up to look like me. Or,
yeah,
I've been told by, most of the time it's always when I'm working. Not at my job currently, when I used to work retail and stuff, and I've had someone come up and go like, "Oh, did you get all those in prison?" And it's like, no, like so I mean, it's kind of one of those things that there's still a perception of people
yeah,
who are tattooed and so
yeah,
forth. So I just didn't know if there was still some of that prejudice out there in general,
yeah.
and if there was, if it's still something that it's
We
still a
definitely
thing.
catch we definitely catch a lot of stares. I think I've had a lot more compliments on my tattoos than I have had people criticize me on them though, because I have a lot of colorful tattoos and stuff, and I've had so many like elderly ladies come up to me and say, "Oh, I just love the colors on your arm and stuff like that."
I
So
get
it
a
always
Yeah.
pumps me up.
Yeah, I was gonna say
But
it's always ladies and always the
yeah,
older ladies who like it and stuff like that, and it's usually
yeah.
the like 50 to 60 year old men that kind of say something, and you're just like, come on,
Yeah,
dude.
I don't know. We haven't. I guess we haven't had too much trouble with it, And if we ever do, if somebody really wants to like challenge us on it, I'll just tell them to look at our hearts, And like even there's a verse in the Bible that says, "Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at our hearts." And I guess that's at the end of the day, that's what we care about, is that where we are in Christ.
Yeah.
So
Um, Something I've actually wondered, because right now you're on, and then I think as someone who books shows, I think this is a really ingenious way to get a new band out there at a
hmm
very nominal cost for people to come check you out. You're on
yep,
the what is it, the dollar Dollar.
The $1 brala.
Okay, I kept wanting to say baller, and I knew that wasn't it.
Yeah.
Because
that works too. $1 brala.
yeah, I was gonna say, which would be a funny tour, because it's like, yeah, you're a
Yeah.
baller, you got $1, come see us.
Yeah.
Which, like, right now, I believe you're in Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, La Crosse. We're at the warehouse.
With only having an EP out currently, what does your live set look like? Are you just basically playing the full record, or are you playing
Yep.
like more of a traditional headlining set where it's about 40 minutes or so and throwing in some covers or older songs, or what does your live set look like currently?
Sure. We're basically just playing our EP straight through, front to back. So, what they're hearing exactly what they're going to be hearing on record. We play a short, sweet set because we believe that less is more, and we want people to be left wanting more. So that means next time we come through, they want to come see us again. If we play too long, then they're like, well, I saw enough of them last time they were here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, we definitely want to leave people wanting more. Also, if we play 5 songs, we can go so hard for 5 songs straight, and just leave people in awe for 25 minutes,
Yeah.
So.
No, that's really good though, because there's definitely been a lot of like newer bands I've seen over the almost 20 years or so I've been going to see shows, where it's like you get really pumped on a band and then you buy like their EP or CD and it's like, oh, everything you saw was all our new material and we're selling you the stuff we're not even playing anymore, and you're like, what a bummer.
Yeah, totally. And that's why we're not playing anything new yet, because we want to, this is the record that we have out, and we want people to hear exactly what is on record live, so they can get pumped. Like, yeah, I know this song, because if you do watch somebody play that you like and they're playing all new stuff or stuff you don't know, it's like, oh wow, that was not at all what I was hoping to see. So
yeah. That's pretty much all I got for you right now.
Cool.
So you're on the rest of this tour, it looked like through the rest of this month basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
I think I saw through your socials that you're looking to hit the road in July and August?
June and July.
Okay.
Yep.
Has that been announced yet, or is that still kind of being worked out?
That will be announced. Let's see. We haven't set the dates. It'll probably be announced as soon as we get home, actually, off this tour. So we've been just focusing on getting, our announcement with Solid State out, and then the re-release out. Now today we featured a new, well, it's not new, but it's the re-release of a music video through New Noise magazine.
Yeah.
So it's just all this new stuff that we have coming out. We're trying to get that all enough tension. And then we'll be announcing that tour. Yeah, probably, I would say, the end of this month would probably be when we announce that.
I would expect that it's just going to be lots of touring pretty much from here on out, and then maybe squeezing in time to record the new stuff.
Yep, pretty much the plans for the rest of this year is just focusing on just touring hard, and then we'll probably get in the studio, I would say, the end of the year. Once the snow starts flying, it gets a little bit tougher for us to tour just because we're in the Midwest.
Right.
And, driving in snow is no fun. So we'll probably set aside some time in December or January to sit down and really grind that new record.
I guess the last 2 questions. First, out of your label mates, who would you like to tour with in the next year or so?
Oh man. We would definitely say probably Fit for a King or Silent Planet would probably be. There's a lot of great bands on Solid State currently, but those are 2. They're great bands. They've both been grinding really hard. So I'd say those are probably the 2 if I had to give you 2. But we would be happy with really anybody on Solid State touring with.
And then the last question, I always end up ending an episode with a song, usually by the band. So what song would you like me to play, and maybe give a little backstory on it?
Sure. Why don't we do, let's do Price Tag.
Okay.
That song means a lot to me. That song is all about dealing with self-worth, and so if you read the lyrics, it's all about, like I said before, the God as the artist and us being his creation, his masterpiece. And so growing up, I didn't really have any self-esteem, and I truly believed that I was a piece of dirt, you know. So
It's weird how all vocalists are usually like the shyest and the quietest and feel like inferior. I've noticed like if you listen to Shane Toll from Silverstein's podcast, the Lead Singer Syndrome, almost everybody, there's two things. Almost everybody was never the singer. It was just kind of like something they were thrust into, or just like, well, I was the only one that wasn't shy, and so now I'm a singer. And the other thing is, a lot of people were like, I was really shy growing up, and I didn't, believe in myself and all these kind of things. And it wasn't until I started singing or whatever that I kind of got self-confidence. So it's kind of always been interesting to see that that's really a theme with singers.
Yeah, that is strange. I definitely was. I was very shy growing up, but then I came to a point in my life where I guess I found myself, where I found my, what I was worth in God's eyes, and that kind of changed, and I wasn't so insecure, and I was willing to be, myself and be outgoing, and I guess, so yeah.
All right.
But yeah, so Price Tag, that's a good jam.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, and this is where I like to let the person plug their socials, wherever people can find you, or whatever you feel like plugging. So where can people find you and or the band?
Yeah, we have a website, which is just earthgroans.com. We have a Facebook, which is just facebook.com/earthgroansband. We have a ton of stuff up. Solid State's been pushing us a lot lately, so if you go to solidstate.com or solidstaterecords.com, we should be right there up on the top. Otherwise, you can search their artists. We also have our album out pretty much everywhere. We got Amazon, iTunes, I think it's on Reverb Nation, Spotify, pretty much everywhere. So
awesome.
Or you can use the old Google machine.
Well, actually, before I leave, I have to ask, since there was a video, and I don't know if it's like gonna come out again, but I have to ask why Earth Groans, because there was a little bit with looking through the lyrics, because I figured maybe there would be something more about like the way man has ruined Earth, or maybe with, like I said, with knowing that you're a Christian-based band, of wondering maybe if there was like an Adam and Eve kind of reference to Earth being this creation that God had, and through Eve, with the apple and all that kind of stuff, and being, taken out of that earth. If there was like kind of like that kind of a thing to it, like where we've kind of been fallible as man, and we are on this earth that's not the paradise that we should be on, or that we were supposed to be for, or be on. So I didn't know if it was like, if I'm reading way too much into it, or if it was just kind of what it was. So I have to know, for my own knowledge, how the band name became.
Yep. Well, we will be releasing the video explaining this, the name and everything. So I'm not sure when that'll come out, when Solid State will release that. But where we pulled the original name was from a verse in Romans, and it talks about the verse talks about the earth like a mother in labor. Referring to like natural disasters and stuff like that. So when we were trying to come up with the name, I was thinking about like, kind of chaos and end of time kind of stuff. So we were thinking hurricanes, earthquakes, all that good stuff. So in the Bible, Earth Groans is like referenced as like natural disaster and stuff. But the cool thing is it has a separate meaning. If you keep reading, it also talks about how each one of us inwardly groan for the adoption of our spiritual bodies through Christ. So when Christ comes back again, we'll receive the adoption of sonship. And so that's actually, so it's like not only is the earth itself groaning, but it's each one of us inwardly we groan for that day. So that's where the meaning actually comes from. So it kind of has a double meaning, which I really like.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for explaining a lot of these things. Like I said,
totally,
I
man.
Wanted to not necessarily be so rudiment with the questions I asked, and hoping that they had already been answered. But hopefully, with the people that are going to check this out, like they'll be more stoked on checking you guys out and getting some answers.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We're stoked to be a part of your podcast. So thank you for having us on.
Not a problem. And there you have it, my chat with Jeremy Schaeffer of the band Earth Groans. They just wrapped up that $1 Brawler tour. By all accounts, from the photos I saw, it looked like it was a really successful run for them. As I said, it's a really clever idea to get people to come out and check out a new band that they may not be aware of, and to also support the locals on a bill and not put a lot of pressure on them to make sure that a show doesn't need to make a certain amount of money and all that kind of stuff. But that's more the land of booking and promoting and all that kind of stuff that I come from, so I kind of think of things like that. From the sounds of it, the band will be out on tour during June and July, so they're going to take like part of this month off and then hit the road. So if they end up coming to your town, go check them out. You can keep up with what they're doing and when they're going to be on the road if you go to earthgroans.com. That's pretty much the one-stop shopping you can do to keep up with that band. They have their lyrics on there, they have videos that they've been posting up on their website, as well as links to buy some of their merch. I know currently they are doing a merch blowout. I think shirts are like $5. I think the CD is currently $5 on there, so you can buy it direct from them. I'm sure if you go to Solid State's website, it's also available there. You can keep up with them over on Facebook, over at Earth Groans Band. You can tweet at them at Earth Groans, or follow them on Instagram at Earth Groans as well. If you'd like to follow Jeremy personally, you can do such on Twitter at All Poetic Audio. Instagram is Jeremy Schaeffer _APA. That's JeremySchaeffer _APA. Speaking of following, I know I plug the shit out of these things week in and week out, but it's an important part of doing these podcasts and growing the fan base of this itself. So if you want to throw me a follow or a like, you can do such over at Facebook and Instagram at John's Untitled Podcast. Tweet at me at John's Untitled Pod, or you can email me at johnsUntitledPod@gmail.com. Rate, review, and subscribe. iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, wherever you get this podcast. Please take the time to let me know how I'm doing and what you think of this episode, or any of the episodes for that matter. Any and all information and feedback is greatly appreciated. Loving the feedback I'm getting. Loving talking to a lot of you through YouTube. It seems like that's been a really great avenue to check out this podcast. The videos are a good thing, I think. It seems like a lot of people are enjoying seeing the interview as it happens, even though I think it's kind of boring just literally to see myself and the other person or persons looking at each other through a computer screen. But seems that people have been genuinely liking it, so I'm going to keep doing that, and I'm going to keep trying to get all my back episodes up. It's a little bit of a process to get everything up and wait for everything to load up onto YouTube and all that kind of stuff, but it's still a process that I'm going through and want to get done and make sure that at that point from here on forward that any new episode will go up there, and then you can still check out the old episodes as well. So again, that's John's Untitled Podcast pretty much across the board, or John's Untitled Pod. Let me know how I'm doing. We're going to end this episode with the song Price Tag off of Earth Groans' new EP, although it was recently re-released, but that's the technicality. But it's off their new EP, Renovate. So without further ado, here's the song Price Tag. Talk to you guys next week.